Hello, Algebra 2. This week we're focusing on one assignment, and that's about dividing polynomials. So to start out with, it should be a little bit of review. Dividing a polynomial by a monomial, meaning a polynomial many terms, divided by one term. So when we do that, we just go through, we take the terms in the top divided by the term in the denominator. So I'm taking 6x to the fourth divided by 3x squared. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. X to the fourth divided by x squared is x squared because we subtract exponents. Same thing for the next one. Negative 15x cubed divided by 3x squared. We take negative 15 divided by 3, we get negative 5. We take x cubed divided by x squared, we get x. And then finally 3x squared divided by 3x squared is 1. Okay, same thing for number 2. Divide each of those terms by 7ab. So I'll let you go through and double check my math. Make sure that you agree. If you don't, let me know what questions that you have. Okay, the next little section is similar but different. So we still have a polynomial, but now it's divided by a binomial. So it says use factoring to divide the polynomials below. So we want to take a look at what we're given in the numerator and try to factor. So with this one, I'm trying to find, since a is equal to 1, I'm trying to find factors of 10 that add to give me negative 7. So for me, that would be negative 5 and negative 2. Okay, and if we FOIL that back out, we should end up with that same quadratic that we have in the numerator. Okay, and then what's cool about this is in factored form, we can see that w minus 5 and w minus 5 are in common. So I can actually take and cancel those out. And so I'm just left with the factor that's left, which is w minus 2. For the next one, same sort of thing. I want to factor this quadratic. I really should have written this the same way that number 3 was written first, because that's what this is saying. But I want to factor. I want to find factors of negative 8, because it's a times c this time, that add to give me b. Okay, so I'm looking for factors of negative 8. Excuse me. So factors of negative 8 that add to give me negative 7. And so some of you had asked me about the bottoms up factoring, because I think in one of the answer keys it shows that with the work shown. I won't give you answer keys with work shown for the rest of the time since we are grading them, but I wanted to make sure that you could check your work. I'd be happy to go through more problems with you though if you look at answer keys and you're not understanding what's going on. And while we're on it, make sure please that you're turning in your work online. Either taking a picture of your work or scanning it in and turning it in on Classroom is the preferred option. If you're having trouble with that though, you can email. Okay, so to find factors of negative 8 that add to give me negative 7, I would say that that's going to be negative 8 and 1. It's supposed to be a negative. Okay. The bottoms up thing is if I take and I do h minus 8, and then I have h plus 1. Okay, well we know that that's not equal, but what we can do is we take each of these divided by 4, right? That's supposed to be a 4, sorry. Okay, divide this one by 4 as well. And so what we do is simplify if we can. Well, negative 8 over 4 is equal to negative 2. Okay, and then otherwise, bottoms up. We can't simplify 1/4, so we move the 4 to the front, and so our factor is 4h plus 1. Okay, now here we see that h minus 2 and h minus 2 are in common in numerator and denominator, and the reason we can finally cancel here is because we've got factors. I've got something here times another something, right? So I've got two terms multiplied together. Once it's in factored form, if there's any common factors in numerator and denominator, then I can cancel them out. And then when we divide, we end up getting the leftover factor. But I cannot go through, let's go back to number 3, I cannot go through number 3 and say, oh, those w's are in common, so I can cancel those out. the top is not in factored form. I have addition and subtraction separating terms, so that's why we can't do what we're doing here. We'd have to do something more like in the numerator up here. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense. We cannot cancel things out until we have a common factor. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. All right, so then we say, okay, well, what if factoring is not possible? We have two options. The first one's long division. So we're going to take a look at the long division first. And I'm going to pause and get us a screen. Okay, so method one, we're going to look at long division. And we're just talking about, okay, what if factoring is not possible? That's what we're trying to look for here. So factoring is not possible, meaning I cannot factor that numerator. I can't think of any factors of negative 43 that had to give me 3. So what I need to do is long division. You guys did this back in elementary school when you took a number divided by another. Excuse me. A number divided by another number. So it's very similar to that process. Like if I made up a number, let's just say 62. And I'm going to divide that by, I don't know, let's just do 4. Okay, first thing I would do is take the first number divided by 4, and that's a 1. And then I would take 1 times 4, and I get 4. So I put it underneath the 6, and I subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2. And then my next step would be bringing down. So I'm going to bring down that 1's digit. Okay, then I'm going to take 22 divided by 4. I get 5. Okay, 5 times 4 is 20. And I'm going to subtract that from what I was given. And whatever's left, we would call the remainder. So I'd have a remainder 2. When we started getting a little bit older, then we would say, okay, well, that's going to be 15, remainder 2/4, which would actually be 2/4, which is the same thing as 1/2. So we could also say 15 and 2/4. So we divide by, put this in the denominator, what we were originally dividing by. So our answer is technically 15.5. If you plug it in your calculator, take 62 divided by 4, hopefully you get 15.5. Okay, so same process as we go through. The steps that I used were divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And I'm going to do that throughout this whole thing. So I got us started through the first step. When I divide, I take first term divided by first term. So I'm taking x squared divided by x, that gives me x. So I put a check mark there. Then I multiply. I'm taking x times x, I get x squared. And I'm taking x times 8. I get 8x. So if they're positive for me, I don't put any signs in there. And then the next step, I'm going to go through and subtract. So I'm going to go subtract, subtract. Okay? These parts will cancel out right here. Okay? As long as we've done our math correctly. And then I've got 3x minus 8x should give me negative 5x. Okay? Then I bring down. So I brought down negative 43. Then I start the process over again. I'm going to divide my first term by first term. Negative 5x divided by x is negative 5. Okay, next step, multiply. Take negative 5 times x. Now, since this is a negative, I'm going to say negative 5x. And then negative 5 times 8 is negative 40. Okay, so again, if it's a negative, I do bring the sign with me. Okay, so I've gone through divide and multiply. Now I'm going to subtract. So to subtract a negative, I have to change the signs to positive. Okay, now I have negative 5x plus 5x. Those are going to cancel. And I have negative 43 plus 40, which gives me a negative 3. There's nothing else left to bring down, so we call this the remainder. And we're going to talk a little bit more in a little bit about how you can rewrite the remainders. Okay, so that's called long division. We're going to practice that. You can use long division for any polynomial divided by another. where you can't factor, when factoring is not an option. Okay, so the other option though, which I would say is a simpler option, it's the same problem, but the second method is called synthetic division. So I'm going to talk to you about when you can use this. You can use this when you're dividing by a linear factor, okay, and its coefficient is 1. So we're dividing by x plus 8, and its leading coefficient is 1, okay? So what we've got here is we're going to set it up. Okay, this is how we're going to set it up. You want to find the 0 of the divisor. So this is called the dividend, the divider, the dividend and then the divisor. And then our answer is the quotient. So over here, dividend, divisor, and then our answer is the quotient. Okay, so we find the 0 of the divisor. So I set my divisor, the denominator, x minus 8, I set it equal to 0, and I solve for x, I get negative 8. Okay, then I line up the coefficients of the dividend. I've got 1, 3, and negative 43, and I always make sure to kind of line them up. I've got x squared, then x, then my constant. I always put a little c there. Okay, and then we use a zigzag pattern. Okay, so the next thing I always do is set up this line, and I do a plus above the line and a multiply below the line. To get the pattern started, I drop the 1 first below the line. Okay, the 1 is below the line, so I'm going to multiply by what's up in the box. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. Then I add anything above the line, so 3 minus 8, or plus a negative 8, equals negative 5. It's below the line, so I multiply by what's in the box. That's a 40. Negative 5 times negative 8 is positive 40. Then I add that to negative 43, and I put that below the line, and that's negative 3. I don't have any other zigzag that I can continue to fill the next spot. When you see the next few problems, we're going to kind of take a look at that, the filling the next spot stuff. So then, since I'm taking x squared divided by x, my answer should be 1 less power. So I always go right to left. We should have a remainder, constant, and then x. So this would be equivalent to x minus 5 remainder negative 3. Weird, that's what we got over here. It's the same problem, so we should get the same thing. Okay, and then over here I've got how you can rewrite the remainder. So technically this remainder of negative 3, just like up here with the 2, we're going to write it over what we were originally dividing by. And to be technical, we could say minus and then 3 over x minus, or x plus 8. Okay, on this back part, I want to kind of take you through, I did some long division and some synthetic for you to kind of check yourselves. So on your note sheet, if I were you, I would print out the one that says draft 1 and kind of just be following through and making sure you want to try it out, follow through the video steps, and make sure you're good to go. So there's a few of these I've done long division just to kind of help you out. I'm going to focus on synthetic because if we're dividing by a linear factor whose coefficient is 1, it's way faster to do synthetic. So your note sheet should show this set up with the blank spaces. To get the problem started, drop the 2 down. It's below the line, so we multiply, fill the next spot with a 14. 2 times 7 is 14. Add together, I get negative 2. Fill the next spot by multiplying by what's in the box. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Fill the next spot. Add. Oops, I forgot that last arrow. We add. So this whole time it should be kind of a zigzag pattern to fill the next spot. 19 minus 14 is 5. Okay, for the next one, double check yourself. That's one that I didn't do long division for. I set it up, did the zigzag pattern. You can check yourself on that. The next ones are important because they're missing powers. So this is why it's very important to write across the top k cubed, k squared, k, c, because if you notice there's no k squared, so I put a 0 there. I also showed you what that looks like with long division. So this one I'm going to leave blank. Our answer should end up giving us the same thing we get with this long division, k squared minus 5k plus 8, remainder negative 8. Okay, and then this last one, I don't think I had it set up for you, so double check and make sure you agree with the setup. 8 goes in the box because remember we set our divisor equal to 0, solve for x. do your zigzag pattern. Here's what your answer should be. Let me know what question.